Alright guys, Jameson, Alex here from Urge. Today we're going to be talking about the homebrew custom class, the Illrigger from D&D's own Matt Colville.
Right.
So, definitely very interesting on here. It's kind of like a inverse paladin.
Yes.
It's like a hellknight, essentially, I think is the lore they go along with on here, where you basically pick... there's 3 different subclasses that you can choose from. Today we're going to be talking about the base class as the foundation. We will go into subclasses later on, in-depth, in-detail videos for those. And each of these subclasses is completely different based on, it's almost like a warlock, like you have a devil that you work under, essentially, and you get different abilities and powers based on that, and it completely changes the feel of the class based on your subclass, even more so than other subclasses do for different classes. So, but today we're just going to talk about the Illrigger on here, and we do have our new round of giveaways for the D&D Beyond player bundle.
Yes.
So, if you didn't win the last one, we will have your chance for the next one.
Yes.
So make sure you like, comment, subscribe to be entered in that. But we're going to jump straight into this. We got a bunch of stuff on this class. Before we jump into the video, we do have our sponsor today, which is Peril and Pigment. Probably the best hand-painted minis that I've ever seen. They're super detailed. They put like a little extra texture and stuff on some of these as well. There's some really cool ones on their site. Every single one is one of a kind. They paint it and they put it on the site and it's sent off.
Right, yeah.
If you buy it, there's not going to be another one like it. They might remake more later with different paint schemes and stuff, but each one you get is going to be unique. So, Alex, starting us off with our base features on here.
All the quick and easy stuff, will knock those out of the way. You do get a D10 hit die, so Paladin Ranger, very much similar there. Your proficiencies, light and medium armor, along with shields, no heavy, simple and martial weapons, no tools. So very not much on the RP side as far as that goes. Constitution and charisma saving throws, because you are a charisma-based caster, so you're thankful for that. Skills of Arcana, Athletics, Deception, Insight, Intimidation, Investigation, Persuasion, Religion. Again, all like very paladin-y, with more of with throwing the Arcana in for some extra magic-y stuff. On that side of things, you can either choose a martial weapon and a shield, or 2 martial weapons, chain shirt or leather armor and a longbow if you want to go ranged, because that's an interesting option that I think you can build here. Kind of like how there's a dex-based fighter, or you can definitely do a dex-based build.
Right. On
an Illrigger. A priest's pack or a dungeoneer's pack. Again, a holy symbol. Again, think paladin there. 2 daggers and 5 javelins. So you've got some ranged weapons. Multi-classing, this is another very specific thing. Just like with paladin, it's charisma of 13 and strength of 13, or a dexterity of 13. So again, if you wanted to build it dex, you don't feel like you have to have a 13 to dip multi-class into there. So like if you were building... if you were building a dex-based fighter, or you've got a rogue, or something else that you want to dip into this to maybe give yourself some extra fun on that kind of thing, you can still have the dex ranged option and not feel like you're having to waste another stat. Because if you're building rogue, you're probably not as concerned about your strength. You don't have to worry about losing out there.
Exactly. You also get some nice features on here to go along with your charisma score on here, which is Forked Tongue. Which also you get at level 1 on here. Right. Whenever you make an ability check to persuade, deceive, or intimidate, you can treat a d20 roll of 7 or lower as an 8. Additionally, you learn the Infernal language. So it's kind of like a weaker reliable talent, but you get it right off the bat.
Right.
And it's only...
Not having to wait for it at all.
For those specific things, persuasion, deception, or intimidation. So a nice way to give those little boosts there at the beginning of a campaign. You also get something called an Infernal Conduit. It's basically a pool that you get access to. It's represented by dice starting with a d10 at first level. You gain additional dice as shown in the Illrigger table, which we will show on screen. With these dice, you can transfer hit points between your Illrigger and other targets, healing allies at the expense of your own health, or draining life force from enemies to rejuvenate your own vitalities. But also, as an action, you can choose a number of dice from your remaining pool and touch another creature. If they are unwilling, this is a melee spell attack with which you are proficient, using charisma as your spellcasting ability, of course. If you miss, nothing happens. You do not roll or lose dice from your pool, so there's no risk to try to do it.
Right, yeah, that I do like that. The whole feel, that falls under the that feels bad, rule. Otherwise, it's like, oh, you're punishing people for just trying to use an ability.
Right.
Yeah,
and if you do hit, or if your target is a willing creature, you can roll the chosen dice. The result of your roll is the number of hit points you transfer. If you're touching an ally, they gain that many hit points, ignoring any hit points in excess of their maximum. You lose hit points equal to the number of hit points they gained. If your sacrifice reduces you to 0, you fall unconscious, as normal with that kind of thing. If you're touching an enemy, they take necrotic damage equal to your roll, and you gain that many hit points. If you would gain hit points excess, you gain temporary hit points instead.
Yeah, so if you drain it out of somebody else, you get the temp HP.
Right. If you're healing someone else, it only heals them to max, but if you're healing yourself, draining it from someone else, you do get the temp HP on top. So that is nice. So you can do it at full health as well. So that's interesting for sure.
It helps you for being selfish, fitting the kind of the class.
And then at level 11, you get a bonus. In addition to draining the life force from an enemy, you can also inflict 1 level of exhaustion on them, which, that's disadvantage on ability checks.
Very unique. I really like that.
And they may recover this exhaustion normally, so a long rest, it'll go away. Ability does not work if the target already has 3 or more levels of exhaustion, or if you have no dice left in your pool, and you cannot choose to inflict exhaustion instead of draining life. So basically, you can't kill someone by giving them exhaustion levels, but you can put them in a hurt spot.
Yeah, you can definitely give them a very bad time otherwise.
And then, similarly to the Paladin, you get fighting styles, or a fighting style. The difference is these are very specific fighting styles only for the Illrigger.
Yep.
They're not the traditional fighting styles.
Yes.
And you have 4 choices to choose from on here. The first is Treachery, which is when you attack an enemy who has none of your allies adjacent to it, you gain a +3 bonus to the damage roll. Notice that is just the damage, not to hit as well.
Yeah.
So you get a little bit extra damage if you're the only one near a target.
Yep.
Bravado, while you are not wearing any armor. Your armor class equals 10 plus your dex plus your charisma modifier. You can use a shield and still gain this benefit. It's
unarmored defense, but for your primary stats, essentially. Yep.
Or Schemes is your third choice. While you wield a melee weapon in one hand and no other weapons, you can use your reaction after an adjacent enemy attacks you to move into any unoccupied space within 5 feet of the attacking enemy. Movement does not provoke an opportunity attack. That is a little bit more niche. I think that's going to be a little bit more rare, and it does use your reaction. Yep. So not really sure why you would choose that one necessarily over the other ones. It's more situational and does use reaction as well. Or the last option on here is Lies. When you attack with a 2-handed melee weapon, you can use your charisma modifier instead of your strength modifier for both the attack and damage rolls.
Which is very interesting.
Right. It lets you just put even more focus on your charisma modifier.
You can literally just focus hard on charisma and have your dex for armor class, things like that.
You will have to know it is a 2-handed melee weapon, so you can't use like a longbow or something with this. So you're going to be getting into the fray of things. It's kind of like a hex blade in that sense for using charisma instead of dex or strength. But you are having to rely on the 2-handed melee weapon to do so.
So level 2, you get another one of the meat features of what this whole class is based around. Is the Baleful Interdict, which is a very fun word.
Combination
to try to get in there together. So starting at 2nd level, you can learn to use the power of hell to censure other creatures. As a bonus action, you can place a seal on a target you can see within 30 feet. You can use this number of times equal to your charisma modifier. Again, why your charisma is so important. When you finish a short or long rest, you regain all of your seals. So get them back pretty regularly. And I like more abilities that let you use them more often, even if they're less impactful, because it feels like you're doing what your class is doing.
You have more options to do on your turn, too.
Right. When you or an ally hits a target you can see with any seals on it, you can, and that's a choice, consume the seals to make the attack deal an extra 2d6 necrotic damage to the target per seal consumed. If you're within 30 feet of the target, you regain 2 hit points for each die of damage your seals did. So if you hit 1 seal on there, deals 2d6 damage, you're going to get 4 hit points back. That's per damage die, not just per source of damage. A creature with a seal on them is interdicted creature.
They're marked.
They're marked. That's easier way to say that. Seals evaporate if not used for 1 minute. Makes sense. Only the Illrigger who placed the seal knows it's there. It appears to the Illrigger as a glowing glyph on the creature's forehead. If a creature with any of your seals on it dies, you can move all the seals to another creature within range.
It's very much like a Hexblade's Curse.
Yes.
Or a Hunter's Mark.
Yes.
In that sense.
Or even Hex for a Warlock, for that matter.
Yes.
When you reach 10th level, you feel your connection to the Archdevil increase. Your seals deal an extra 1d6 damage, increasing to a total of 3d6. Your seals improve differently based on which contract you choose. The improvements are listed under the Diabolic Contract below.
Yes. So this is
Diabolic Contract being your subclass. That's the term for the subclass.
It's similar in sense to almost like a smite, kind of.
Yes.
But it changes based on your subclass.
Yeah.
And it's kind of like you get a very unique ability, and they're very different depending on what subclass you choose.
Right. Instead of using a spell slot to pop it, it's a pool of ability you can do, but similar type of damage range.
The only thing on here that's a little strange that I realized when I read through this the first time is it says you see the glowing glyph on their creature's forehead, and it's only you that can see it. So the only question I have on here, and I've not found an answer on this, that Matt Colville might have clarified this, or just DM discretion. If something is invisible, do you still see that glyph glowing?
Fair point.
Or is the invisibility hide it so you no longer see where the creature is? Because it does say only you can see it, so in a sense, it kind of makes sense that you would be the only one to be able to see it. But at the same time, I can see why that might be a little bit too much on there. So just one little note thing maybe to bring up to a DM ahead of time to let them know, hey, if this comes up,
what's the
ruling?
It's
better to figure it out before it happens than to try to argue at it. So
well, since I can see him, I want to see him. He's invisible, but it's
right.
Cover that problem before you get there.
Yes. So Hellsight is another thing you get at level 3. Mm-hmm. Mastery of Deception makes it easy for you to recognize the use of concealing sorcery. As an action, you extend your awareness out from you. Until the end of your next turn, you know the location of creatures within 60 feet using magic to hide or disguise themselves. So that kind of goes in with the invisibility. It's a different way for you to be able to find them if they're not marked. You can use this feature a number of times equal to your charisma modifier. When you finish a long rest, you regain your expended uses. This right here, I have to say just because I thought of it. Like beast breathing. Demon Slayer, so yes.
I wish you brought that up ahead of time.
Sense around. But
I'd put the shirt on, but
it's not that relevant. And then we get to the Diabolic Contract, also at 3rd level. This is a very front-loaded class in general. So you do have Diabolic Contract as well. You gain the Invoke Authority ability to choose either Painkiller, which is the patron is Despater. Shadow Master, patron is Moloch, or Architect of Ruin, the patron is Asmodeus as your Archdevil. Furthermore, you're a noble knight in the lists of hell and will be accorded fine treatment and hospitality anywhere in hell you travel, even to cities ruled by enemy archdevils. More cosmopolitan cities in the timescape like Alloy. In this little lore thing here is for Matt Colville's world on here. So if you are playing in this world, like City of Brass and things like that, will also respect your noble rank. So it's basically saying if you're in his world, then things like Alloy, you're going to be welcome. Otherwise, things like City of Brass, which are in more than Forgotten Realms territory, basically just saying in certain circumstances your DM may give you bonuses based on this.
Easy to get information, connections, things like that.
Essentially, if you didn't gather it here, this Diabolic Contract is when you get your first subclass ability.
Correct.
So that's just the base start point on there.
Right. Just like they call clerics is their domain. It's just that's their term for the subclass for the base class.
And then also along with that, just so you get your Invoke Authority, which is different based on which Archdevil you're aligned with your subclass. And when you use it, you can choose which option to use. Once you use the feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. So again, those will be in detail when we do the subclass videos because they are very different depending on which one you get. Yeah, it's almost like a Channel Divinity in that sense, where it's just a special ability that can be changed based on your subclass.
And all of them do have 2 uses of their Invoke Authority. Again, like clerics have the base use of turning undead, and they get an extra one from their subclass. Whereas this, they just get 2 from their subclass. Right. So the choice is the same. It's just more specific to each subclass, flavor-wise, and everything else. You're going to get your ability score improvements at 4, 8, 12, 16, and 19, just like everybody else not named Fighter and Rogue. No, nothing out of the order there. Extra attack at 5, nothing out of the order there. Then your last 2 base class abilities are Aura of Despair at level 14. Whenever a hostile creature within 15 feet of you makes an attack roll or saving throw, it must roll a d4 and subtract the number rolled from the result. I really like that. It's nothing that's crazy, but it's going to be impactful in every single time. It doesn't cost you anything. It's just a free passive. If they're close to you, they got a harder time eating. Now, it's just a d4, but it is a passive thing that you can just have on all the time.
I will note on here, you don't get anything between level 5 and 14 from your base class.
Yeah,
so
like
that's
you
a
said,
long time
it
on
is.
there.
But your subclass is
going
to
to
be
get
through in the
stuff.
middle there.
But
yeah.
your base class, I mean, you're essentially done after 5 almost.
Feels like playing a cleric.
Yeah, to an extent. Yeah.
Get your domain at 1. I'll chill Indy 2.
Yeah, with the subclasses, by the way, you get your abilities at 3, obviously, is your starting.
Yep.
And then 7, 9, 13, and 17. And then, of course, the caps run at 20.
Yeah.
So it's kind of funny because typically the level 20 ability in the other classes usually is a base class feature that you get.
Right.
But in this, it's a subclass feature that you get at your capstone. So it's kind of interesting.
Which is definitely interesting. Finally, at 15, so you get nothing from 5 to 14 from your base class, but you get something to back-to-back levels.
Right.
And so you got the nice little passive, and you got the big stick, which is, as an action, you can summon a bone devil to serve you for 1 minute. The devil appears in occupied space within 30 feet and is bound to you, must obey your commands to the best of its ability. It acts on the same initiative that you act on, and may both act and move on your turn you summon it. If you die or fall unconscious, the devil returns to hell. Once you use the feature, you must wait 1 week before you use it again. Because Jameson's pulling it up for clarification, but I'm going to think that's a CR8?
9.
Nah, so close.
Yeah, it's a big boy on here. It's
you talk about screwing up the action economy in that combat. All this,
that's a big thing.
Druids and rangers that summon animals and elementals and things. We're just throwing in an extra CR9. Just
right.
Ah.
19 AC, 142 hit points, 40 foot flying speed, and regular movement speed. It does have a multi attack with 3 attacks. Not a ton of damage though. It's more of a annoying thing than anything. It's only plus 8 to hit, so it's not crazy.
Yeah, it's a beefy body that'll get in there and poke stuff and be in the way.
Yeah, I mean it does do solid damage on here. If it has poison damage that it can do on top with its sting. So it's pretty solid, but the best thing about it is it has advantage on saving throws against spells and magical effects. So that is pretty nice, and it has some good resistances as well. But yeah, so it's definitely going to be very impactful to pull in basically another whole character, essentially. 142 health,
yeah.
I mean, that's a whole other player, essentially. Yeah. Even if it's not doing tons of damage,
it's still there.
It's still there, and it can soak up damage and stuff like that. So it is definitely pretty
Especially
powerful.
if you're fighting things that aren't super smart. Like you're fighting other creatures and things like that, don't have the intelligence to realize that, that I don't really worry about that thing as much. I need to worry about, but can position it well. It's gonna be impactful when you pop it for a reason why it takes a week to do it again.
Yeah, it's definitely very strong. Overall thoughts on this, I feel like it's definitely very interesting.
Yes.
It's hard to gauge just the base class because unlike some of the other classes, the subclasses completely change it.
Yes.
So when we actually go over that, you'll see that.
Yeah.
But I think it is pretty interesting, if anything.
Yeah.
It might lean a little bit more on the strong side, I feel like, just because of the amount of things that you can do.
I think specifically with the multi-class dip, because it is so front-loaded. If you wanted to dip into this, like I said, out of a deck-space paladin build with this would be a really interesting combination. But rogue or something else like that, or even a sorcerer build, if you went with the sorcerer built version of this, it might be really interesting. But there's I like interesting and something I bring up in a lot of our videos when there's new content brought out, whether it's a UA kind of thing like this, homebrew, or if it's new stuff that Wizards is releasing themselves, that it needs to feel unique and like it stands apart from itself in terms of flavor, what it can do.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it just feels like it's just kind of forced. But this definitely stands out as unique. While it does feel a lot like Paladin, but it definitely grabs some stuff from a Warlock.
Yes.
And things like having a patron, things like that, the whole curse type thing that you can move around.
Right.
It does borrow some things from a little different places, but it brings it together in a theme that still feels unique. That's definitely not just like a Oathbreaker Paladin kind of thing. It's definitely not just that, because the abilities it gets makes it stand out completely different from the way a Paladin operates.
Yeah, so definitely very interesting. I would love to try this out, and I think something that you could do too is once you see all the subclass videos, so obviously stick around to the channel, just so we'll get through those.
Self-plug.
To have like one of those parties where it's like you all are playing
something
Illrigger,
we had talked
pick
about.
a different subclass.
That would be kind of fun.
It'd be
I think that's a very interesting way if your group can agree to do that for like a mini campaign, you know, short series.
And thematically, it would make sense too if we did like, even if you did like an evil campaign. I mean, you're Hell Knights, so you're all 3 different Hell Knights for the different. Maybe you're scheming against each other at the same time that you're working together. Yeah. You can do some cool stuff with that. So definitely very interesting. Worth checking out at the very least. Make sure to we're not sponsored or partnered with Matt Colville or anything, but we did buy this thing, and I of course want to support this because it is very well made. I would highly suggest checking it out, buying it. It has lots of great art in it. There's a little short story at the beginning. It's got some flavor and lore and stuff. It has more spells and stuff at the end. It's got a lot in this PDF. So definitely make sure you check that out. I'll put a link down below so you can check it out, buy it, support him if you want to do that. Thanks again to our sponsor, Peril and Pigment. Make sure you guys check them out and support them. Support us. Thanks. And of course, we have all of our stuff as well with Amazon storefront and all that. So make sure you check that out if you want to help support us. We have more stuff that we'll be discussing if we have not already announced it at this point, depending on when we record this. So yeah, check out all of our stuff if you want to support us. Awesome. If not, then I hope you enjoyed the video.
Absolutely.
So that's all for today, guys. If you liked it, make sure you like, subscribe, hit the bell notifications. You know, if our new videos are coming out. And as always, guys, thanks for watching.